Hello and welcome to Portsmouth This Week. I'm your host, Conley Zani. This show is under the auspices of Rich Rayner, our Portsmouth Town Administrator. Together, Rich, myself, and the entire Portsmouth This Week team are on a mission to build community. We do that by bringing you accurate and timely information about the issues and events that impact you. We introduce you to the faces, the characters, the leaders in this magical place that we live. I'm so excited today to have on my show two very special guests. I've got Lori Karen Silvera, the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. Lori, welcome.
Thank you.
And Eric Seabury, the Director of Engineering, and I cannot wait to talk to you about engineering things regarding the Mount Hope Bridge. But thank you both for coming here and being on this show, and we really just want to educate people about what's about to happen with this very quick bridge closure. But before we do, I just want to clear up, who are you guys? What is RITBA, right? Am I saying that acronym right? All right, because I know there's a lot of confusion and people think you're something and responsible for things that you're not. So, Lori, tell us about it.
Well,
get everybody clear.
And we like to get that question because there's more going on than meets the eye.
Yeah, okay.
And I always use the example for those of us who have children. Remember the Richard Scarry books?
Oh, yes.
That were entitled, What Do People Do All Day?
Yeah.
So when I came into this job as the executive director, I immediately saw that, Richard Scarry, if only he could write another book, What Do People Do All Day at the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. And it's really pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I always break it down into three departments.
Okay.
One is Eric's department, engineering, maintenance of 4 major bridges, 10 small bridges.
Yeah.
And
so what are the 4 major bridges? Let's just cover that real quick.
Are the Newport Pell.
Okay.
And I'll get in trouble for the name. So so if we have time, we could talk about that.
Okay,
but
we're going to call it the right
It's commonly known as either the Pell, the Claiborne Pell, the Newport Bridge, the Mount Hope Bridge,
Okay.
The Saconnet River Bridge,
Yeah.
and the Jamestown Verrazano Bridge.
Okay.
So those are the main 4.
I'm learning something already.
Yes.
Right.
And then
So you're not part of the other bridge, like the Washington Bridge and all that.
No,
That's
the 4
something
major
else.
bridges and 10 small bridges.
Okay.
2 of them are in the area. We've brought a chart with us, a map that we use when someone says, what exactly are the assets that come under your jurisdiction? We have this board that we bring with us, and we show. And the 2, some of them are very small bridges over near the Jamestown Verrazano Bridge, and near the Pell Bridge.
And there's one really close here.
Yeah, there are 2 near the Saconnet River Bridge.
Yes.
The Hummocks Avenue Bridge and the Evans Avenue Bridge are near the Saconnet.
Yes, I think my child has jumped off that Hummocks. I know you would not be happy to hear that. You don't want people doing that, but he and all the other teens do that. So anyway, all right.
So one of the departments is engineering and maintenance of all of these assets that we've just talked about.
So that's what you're head of.
Yes,
That's right.
yes. And
Got
that would
it.
include capital projects and ongoing maintenance of these bridges.
Yeah.
The other would be, how do you pay for all of this?
Yes.
So we get into the other 2 departments.
Yeah.
One that I will mention is tolling, which has become quite a complicated animal over the years.
Yes, so you taught me something right before we started filming here about a word that you called smishing.
Smishing.
Okay, so since we're talking very quickly about tolling, tell everybody what that means and how it relates to tolls.
Thank you, and it's timely because unfortunately a new round of smishing has just today started to rear its ugly head. It's a combination of the word phishing, PH, which is cyber,
that's scamming.
criminal scamming, and the SM are for SMS, which refers to texting. So
it's scamming over text.
Scamming by text. And so people,
smishing.
so when we first experienced it, which was I think back in November of 24, the first one that people were receiving said, you have driven on a Kansas toll road. You owe $4.92.
So Rhode Islanders are getting that.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
You need to pay this. You were on a Kansas toll road. You need to click here and pay your toll.
And people did that even though they weren't in Kansas. They just did that because they got scammed.
You know, there's all different reasons why you might see that, maybe not read it closely.
Sure.
I know that when I received it, I knew I hadn't been driving on a Kansas road. So of course, I knew about smishing because it had started, I believe, in New Hampshire a month before we saw it. Also, Massachusetts has been hit particularly hard, and often Rhode Islanders are getting these texts, and the link is to Easy Drive Mass, which is the Massachusetts Easy Pass entity.
So they're getting very sophisticated.
They are.
So basically, your message to people, though, is you're never going to text them.
Never.
Correct? So that's the takeaway. So people,
absolutely,
don't do that. Don't click on the link.
Don't click.
Okay.
Don't click. Delete. Do not click on the link.
Well, so that's just taking resources right now because that's rearing its head, like you said. Your whole department that's in charge of that is dealing when we're about to do this big project on the Mount Hope Bridge, which we're here to talk about.
Right,
so.
right. That's right. And when people have, I call them real tolling issues that they need help with. I mean, they want to call us to say, I saw something on my account. I don't think it's correct. Could you check it for me? I think maybe my plate wasn't correctly read, or all the things that we should be helping with.
Yeah,
our resources are diverted.
Yeah. Oh
it's really unfortunate, but we have an awesome customer service staff, and they're doing the best they can. They're doing yeoman's duty, as I say. So it's been great.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this Mount Hope Bridge project, and maybe before we get into the dirty details about that, what's some of the history? Like, it's a vital link between Bristol and Portsmouth. So what can you tell us about this bridge?
Yeah, it's an interesting part of the history of this area for sure. Until in 1920 there was a ferry, and that was connecting Bristol with Portsmouth and allowing people to continue on to Aquidneck Island. So and then there were efforts. Someone recognized the need. As with many major capital projects like this, there was not agreement. That won't be a surprise to anyone.
Shocker.
Even back then. And so there was a lot of discussion, and some years passed. And finally, the bridge was, they decided to build the bridge. It was built starting in December of 27.
Okay.
And it was opened in October of 29.
I love that you brought some notes so that you get, I mean,
did.
Cool. No, I love that.
Yes.
That's neat stuff to know,
it
right?
It was originally owned privately. So we are the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. We're a quasi-public entity created by statute. We have a board of 5 members. The director of the Department of Transportation sits ex officio, and there are 4 other members, all appointed by the governor. So that's who we are. But back in 1929, when this bridge opened, it was privately owned by the Mount Hope Bridge Company. That eventually went bust, actually, and went into receivership. Then from there, and I'm just looking to make certain that I get this correct, but it was from there. There was some subsidy that allowed it to come out of receivership, and eventually it became part of a quasi-public. Came under the jurisdiction of our quasi-public entity.
How very interesting,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yep.
All right, well, so now I know when you drive over that bridge, it feels a little bumpy sometimes, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to address here in this near term. So maybe, Eric, do you want to share a little bit about what's about to happen there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we looked into a couple of different options. We originally were considering maybe a chip seal application, which had been done in the past.
Is that like an epoxy seal kind of?
No,
put it in layman's terms.
They basically put down some liquid asphalt and then some stone on top of that, and it gets compacted. Eventually, the cars drive over it.
But it's not an official repaving. That's just kind of like a top layer.
It's a top layer, and when we met with one of the only companies around here that applies it, they basically said, look, if you're looking to improve rideability, chip seal's not the product, because not unless you mill the bridge surface. to even it out.
And that's what that term's important, rideability.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
The only issue, I got to clarify right now, the only issue with the bridge deck is rideability. There is no structural issue with the bridge deck. What you're driving on is purely the wearing surface only. The structural part of it, which is...
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, the structural part, which is embedded down deep in the concrete, is perfectly fine and it's in good condition and safe.
Thank you for clarifying that we're dealing with a rideability issue, not a sort of the integrity of the structure.
That's right.
Like, that's what us lay people don't have any idea. So I'm glad you're here to
Absolutely correct.
just right. Okay, so rideability.
So then we looked a little bit further and said, well, chip seal is probably not the right application then, because really the ultimate goal here is, well, I mean, there's another goal of trying to seal the deck for the foreseeable future until we can plan a deck replacement, and we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah.
So we found a technology that Massachusetts is using just over the border called ultra-thin bonded overlay. And what the technology is they grind down a thin layer of the top surface of asphalt, and you can also grind concrete. And of course, we've got a mix out there, right? You see the patchwork of exposed asphalt and concrete. You take off about 5/8 of an inch with a micro grinding machine.
Yeah.
You fix any...
It's like a dermabrasion facial.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then,
You're like, I don't know what you're saying, lady, but...
and then you can, if you're left with any holes, deeper holes, you can fill it with some hot mix asphalt first. And then the contractor comes in with a special paver that applies a thin layer of this ultra-thin bonded overlay, and it's a polymer-based material. In the end, basically, they put down just as much as you took off. So we're not adding weight to the bridge. And then they roll it out. And in the end,
this is what we're doing.
And this is what we're doing. And the final application will be from curb to curb, and it will look like a paved roadway. That's the end result, and it should be nice and smooth.
That sounds amazing.
You're among many.
Okay, right.
We're probably the most excited.
Yes.
I have no doubt. Because how long, this has been in the works for a while, like the planning process, correct?
It has been, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you feel like you're giving birth a little bit?
Yeah, well, that and the dehumidification project and the eventual full deck replacement, which is coming in the years
Okay, so we'll
ahead.
talk about that, but this near-term project, is it next week? When are the
Thursday
dates?
night.
Let's be
Next
very
Thursday-
clear.
Yeah, next Thursday night at 7 p.m.
Okay, so
bridge will
tell
be
the
shut.
date, just because we're going to be running this all the time. So what's the date? August
14th.
August 14th. Okay.
7
At 7 p.m. Because
At 7. Okay.
yes,
That's
for a
right.
reason, obviously. We wanted to let the commuters get through, so we
That's a
we
good
worked with the
reason.
contractors
You're thinking.
and beach traffic maybe is subsided by 7
Right.
p.m. So 7 p.m. Thursday night.
Okay,
They'll work
until?
through the night. It will go through Friday. And Saturday, Sunday. The plan is to be open by 5 a.m. on Monday morning.
Okay, so
For
the
the commute.
commuters, for the commuters.
Yes.
All
That's
right. Right, so this will be a little bit of a disruption, but just for the weekend.
Right.
What do we need to tell people about that, other than just make your plans?
Make plans.
How do we
watch for
minimize this?
detours.
Okay.
We've reached out early and often to all of the stakeholders, to
Who
town.
are those big stakeholders?
When I have a stakeholders list, it's town officials. It's elected officials from the area. It's the public safety, the fire, police, first responders.
Right.
It's the hospitals. If it's right now we're hoping it doesn't involve the
my
schools, but
goodness,
we
right.
did reach out to Roger Williams because we certainly didn't want to do this on the weekend when students and their families are moving in.
Right, so it's been very thoughtfully planned about the time, because it's always a disruption, but you've tried to pick the perfect time.
We have.
to
I
the
mean, it's
extent
still the
that
summer.
exists.
It's still the summer, and that is, we say there's no such thing as a slow season or an off season anymore.
Yeah.
We call it the shoulder season.
Yeah.
And so we realize it's the high season. However, it really needs to be done, as you've pointed out. I mean, everyone's complaining that it's pretty bumpy. It needs to be done, and if we have to do it after Labor Day, then we're talking about students and school buses and all of that. So we're certainly hoping.
This sounds good. I think.
Thank you.
Seal of approval here.
Thank
you guys are amazing.
No
And-
pun intended. Overlay, seal. Or pun intended.
Okay, so this is our short-term fix. This is improving
That's right.
rideability. But at some point, we've got to address some other issues, like maybe the deck, Eric. I don't know.
Yeah, so
do you
though
want to
the-
expand on maybe what the next phase might be after we get through this?
Yeah, so though the deck is perfectly safe, you know, the wearing surface has gotten to the point where we looked at we are still considering a rehab. We're in the selection process to get a consultant on board to help us start planning for the longer term project.
Okay.
And the reason we want to start planning now is we have to do a real deep dive into what are the deck types we can consider for replacement. Are there any rehab options with the current deck?
Yeah.
Or is it that not a good idea based on some other, you know, corrosion of under supports of the deck that has happened over the years? I mean, that deck was put in 85, 86. That was the last time it was replaced.
And I'm assuming by deck you mean sort of that layer underneath what we're driving on. That's sort of like that deeper layer of.
The deck is a system of components. There's some steel stringers underneath that support the steel grating, which is similar to the steel grating that's buried in the concrete that you're driving on.
Yeah.
Is just like the exposed steel grating that used to be on the old Jamestown Bridge that many people remember driving over.
Okay.
Except that one was an open grating that terrified most people. And when they were stuck in traffic and they looked down.
There's a big psychological component of this whole
so this
thing
one's
that you're thinking about
filled.
as the head of engineering, right?
Yeah. This grid is filled with concrete. But that concrete has started to deteriorate, and though it's not structural, it would be very difficult to rehab and make it last longer, long enough to spend the money on.
Right. So maybe it's a total redo.
So we're thinking it's probably going to go that way. You know, we'll look at all our options. That's right. But the other components that we have to start planning for is the biggest one, the biggest elephant in the room. How do you build it?
Yeah.
How do you replace that deck? Because 40 years ago, they closed the bridge for the better part of a year. And
yes, I heard about this. This was before my time here. Like 9 months at least. Right?
At least, and
9
it
or
was
10 months, 1985.
So that's always an option, and it will be evaluated. But we'd like that not to be the option that we go towards. So we'll be looking at technologies that have been employed, construction techniques that have been employed more recently by other agencies. We belong to a sister agency group. Our engineering section meets regularly with sister agencies of similar complex bridges. So we share ideas all the time.
Is there an example of another bridge out there that you could throw out that's like, oh, this is like this bridge, and it's like the Golden Gate Bridge?
There's a lot of suspension bridges that it's like. Mount Hope is a narrow version of many of the ones that are out there because it's 2 lanes.
Okay. I knew I was going to learn a ton about bridges, like more than I could ever imagine today. Like that's cool.
Yeah. It's also an interesting fact that the Mount Hope Bridge opened the same year as the George Washington Bridge in New York. Recently, in the years when we've been developing the dehumidification plan for the cables and anchorages at the Mount Hope and also at the Pell, the George Washington was undergoing major rehab, part of which was a dehumidification system.
So let's talk about, I don't know what you mean by that. I think this is an Eric question, right? Dehumidification? What do you mean by that?
Dehumidification.
What are we sucking water out of?
So it's a technology that started in the late 90s in Japan, and it eventually worked its way over to the U.S. And around 2005, 2006, I believe. What they started to realize is that the cables in suspension bridges over time collect moisture, and actually can have water amongst the strands that compose the.
And that can't be good, right?
It's not good,
right? So we don't want that.
That's right. Water in bridges are not good, right? So they came up with a system of dehumidification where they unwrap the entire cable, take all the sheathing off, expose it. They'll evaluate it. They'll wedge it open. You'll put in a series of injection and exhaust ports around the cable, so they'll look like an enlarged sleeve with piping that attaches to it.
Yeah.
And then you pipe in dehumidified air from a control plant room, which would be usually
then the water draws out of it because it wants to go there.
It actually pushes it through. So you'll inject dehumidified air into the injection port. It'll go through the cable a specified number of feet, sufficient enough to be able to pass air through in between the strands. It comes out the exhaust port. And then you'll inject air at the next injection, which will go the next, let's say it's 250 feet, you would have an exhaust port and an injection port right next to each other.
Okay.
So the air will come out here, it gets measured, the humidity level gets measured.
So and then when you're done, or when you...
And you're done, and it takes a series of months to get to the point. But once you hit 40% humidity or less, any active corrosion that's been happening in the cables is stopped in its tracks, essentially. So you can basically stabilize your cable for another 50 to 75 years. I think the George Washington Bridge in New York, they were claiming 75 to 100 years. So, it adds life to the bridge. And you can do this in the anchorage as well, which is where the cable terminates on both ends of the bridge. And we plan on doing the same thing on Mount Hope. It's going to be the anchorages and the cables that will get dehumidified.
That is bizarrely exciting.
It really is.
Like, I'm just like, whoa. Like, I just marvel at the technology, right? You know, across all these different industries.
And there's only 7 or 8 bridges, to my knowledge, in the U.S. that have active operating systems right now. So we'll be still one of the first, probably 10 or dozen by the time we get done, because there are other ones in process now.
So we'll install the system. It'll kind of always be running, right? So it's
It'll
almost like a
That's
little
right.
life support, but it's doing a really positive thing,
Absolutely.
keeping the humidity level at whatever,
40% or
whatever
less.
your
That's
metric
right.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll be designing a second dehumidification system for the Pell. And the Pell is 2.1 miles long, whereas the Mount Hope is 1.2 miles long. So it's an entirely different
With
system.
your trivia facts.
So yeah, well, so
Unbelievable.
so no 2 dehumidification systems are the same. They have to be designed for the bridge.
Yeah.
That it's to
Customized.
serve.
Different size
We-
cables, different lengths, you know.
You're so interested in this, and
I am.
I wish I had for you. We have a slide. When we first started talking about dehumidification, we held some meetings with the local elected officials, and we had a slide show, and we have a slide that shows someone on the bridge on a dehumidification system, not our bridge, but a bridge that has,
cool.
and they open the spigot, and the water that pours out. Now, that's manually causing the water to come out from the dehumidification. When as Eric said, when the system is running, it will just automatically do that. But it's kind of an interesting slide to see the water and it sort of gives you some peace of mind that all of this water that would otherwise remain
everything.
That's right.
in the wires.
Well, I am very interested. I used to be an engineer.
We can tell.
No one would know
No.
that, but I was a materials engineer as an undergrad, and then I was in a PhD program in chemical and biomedical engineering. But I was going to ask you if you were a chemical engineer or a civil engineer or what?
Civil structural.
Civil structural,
Yeah.
because a lot of this fluid flow and everything is very chemical engineering too.
Yeah.
Really neat. Yeah, but no, I'm totally like, whoa, very cool,
Yes.
very cool.
We're excited about the project. It'll be interesting.
Okay, so now the business side of me wants to know about the money. Where's the money coming from? I know we've secured some maybe federal funds for this, right?
Yes, which is very exciting.
Okay, so maybe, Lori, this might be a
This
question
is,
for you to address.
It's been a once in a, certainly once in I would say in a lifetime. I hope not in a lifetime, but certainly the first, I hope, of other opportunities to get some serious federal funding for roads and bridges throughout the country. And we've been fortunate to receive $17 million for the dehumidification in a PROTECT grant. And these grant names, one is RAISE, one is PROTECT. I usually have infra.
Yeah.
I usually have all the acronyms
this is
spelled
part of what
out.
the executive director gets to do. You're swimming in the grants, right?
Yes.
Swimming.
So the 17 million in a PROTECT grant. In addition to that, we received 10 million in congressionally directed spending, CDS, which is otherwise known as an earmark at the congressional level. We're thrilled to have that money for the Pell for dehumidification and other phases of work that has to be done on the Pell. We have 82.5 million in an infra grant. So, and in addition to that, we have to provide funds that match. We have to provide the matching funds. So it's 20%. The match.
I know that match. Oh,
yes. So I don't want your viewers to think that it's a 17 million plus 10 million. It's actually considerably more than that.
I get that.
What funds that? What funds our operations would be the tolling operations at the Pell. We have bonds. We have both toll revenue bonds and we have motor fuel tax bonds. It is the toll revenue bonds that fund what is designated in the bonds as the system, with a capital S. The system is the Pell and the Mount Hope Bridge. So, so it's the tolls that
is very enlightening,
yes,
right? Because people get all mad and there's so much, right? So these are going to really important projects to keep us safe and keep us moving on and off this island.
We get people asking us very often, when are you going to be done? I remember being at a doctor's office.
You're never going to be done.
And that's my answer.
Yeah,
I've had a doctor look me in the eye and
she's got a
say,
job
when
for
are
another-
you going to finish the work on, you choose, the Pell, the Mount Hope.
Yeah.
When are you going to finish? And my answer is, never. And you don't want me to finish because you want us to maintain the bridge.
That's right.
And I have other people who say, when we see you out there, I drive over and I see you've got a work zone. I see you've got we call it a pattern. We see you've got cones and we see you've got workers out there doing something. It gives us peace of mind to know you're working on something that needs attention. So we like that attitude.
I love that. Okay, 1 minute to address, there was an inspection in November, right? And I think everything was just fine, but there's some weird drama about we can't see the report, but you can't see the report because of Homeland Security, correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Right? So let me let you say that in a better way.
I'm looking at Eric because this involves both of us.
Okay.
And
let's keep it a quick answer because we're going to have to.
So an inspection.
Guys.
So inspection reports are required to be done at certain intervals.
Yeah.
We did an inspection of the Mount Hope. There's a very lengthy report that comes out. It is stamped not by us as containing sensitive security information. We have submitted that to the federal government because there is a provision in the Code of Federal Regulations about these iconic bridges that unfortunately we have to worry that they could be a terrorist target. Yeah. So Eric has done what he should do, which is to deliver those reports to the federal government and ask for advice back as to what can be released. In the meantime, if anything. In the meantime, Eric has spoken at length, I think, to the Portsmouth Times, and also, we went before the Portsmouth Town Council and the Bristol Town Council recently, and he's spoken to the fact, and I'll let you add about the fact that there were no, what they, engineering term, no significant findings.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So it was a typical inspection report result for a 96-year-old bridge. Granted, there's steel corrosion issues, there's painting, areas that probably need repainting at some point, areas of concrete repair so they basically will give you a list of, hey, here's the things you need to worry about. And the inspectors, the consulting company will prioritize them. Yeah. And what we do is we look through the list, we do a debrief on every inspection report with our consultants when they're finished. And we sit in a room, we say, tell us what we need to know about this bridge. You got an 800 or 900 page report. Give me the cliff notes that I need to worry about, and we go through them. We pick them off. A lot of them we can do with our in-house maintenance staff, and we'll pick them off as everything we can. And what we can't, we program it for a capital program, and we go out there and we'll.
You can write a grant.
Yeah, yes. We'll do a whole bunch of steel
Lori?
repairs. We'll do painting. We'll do concrete repairs, and they'll get programmed for the appropriate date in the future. Yeah. So.
All right. Last quick question. Who does the lights on the Secundit River Bridge? How do you decide what color it is?
That's a great question.
Is that you?
Yes,
is that you?
That is me.
And you're doing it from your computer, remotely?
It is done on the Secundit River Bridge. Unlike the Mount Hope Bridge, the lights on the Mount Hope Bridge, the necklace on Mount Hope and the Pell, those are done the old-fashioned way. So
seriously?
We actually, and if I can go to those two, because I get questions about those all the time, we ended up doing, a few years ago, the board acted and did a resolution designating Memorial Day through July for red, white, and blue lights.
There you go.
And the rest of the time, white lights. And you get public opinion on the Secundit River. It's done from a computer at our office.
I'm glad to know the face behind it now.
Yeah, and we receive requests from primarily from nonprofits that are trying to raise awareness of a particular medical condition or a particular cause.
It's beautiful.
It's wonderful. I love it.
You guys are absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
What a treat to have you on this show, Lori, Eric.
Thank
you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Don't ever quit. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Portsmouth This Week. We'll see you next time.